Welcome to a very special live episode of Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Wednesday, November 8th. I'm your host, Tom Moore. The Michigan State game is in 3 days. The game against Michigan in 17 days. I know it is getting super close. The end of the college football regular season is getting disturbingly close already. We got to talk a little bit about the Buckeyes, what we learned from Ohio State head coach Ryan Day, defensive coordinator Jim Knowles. We will probably talk a little bit of Michigan as well, but in case you have not already listened to it, Tony and I are dropping a nearly hour-long episode with a full update on the Michigan situation in the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed on Tuesday afternoon. So we'll have plenty to talk about there. There will probably be a little bit to talk about here. We'll probably talk a little bit, do some live questions. But I guess, Tony, let's start with some of the things we heard from Ryan Day as he was kind of previewing the Michigan State game, trying very hard not to talk about some other stuff. Let's start with the Ohio State special teams. It feels like this is sort of the story du jour. It has just not been a consistent thing, at least in a good way, and it maybe has been an inconsistent thing in a consistent way for Ohio State. And it feels like the more they have issues, and it's always something a little different. On Saturday with Michigan State, it was the fake punt that wasn't supposed to be a fake punt. But it just feels like there's just sort of consistently something that's just going just a little bit not right with the Ohio State special teams right now.
Yeah, and one of the things Ryan Day said is it's all of the coaches are involved in special teams, so they all need to be better at it. But when you have one coordinator, obviously he needs to be better at it as well. I'm still a little confused as to exactly what the exact breakdown was of the fake punt, because it wasn't a fake punt. But Jesse Mirko does have the option of running if something is open, but the communication to him wasn't good enough from the person giving him the communication. My assumption would be Parker Fleming or Parker Fleming proxy to Jesse Mirko. So I don't know if it was you have the option to run, but make sure only if it's this look, and definitely not when running to the left, which they were doing. Running to the right is much easier to do and to kick, and so running to the left, you're not doing it as fast because it's just a different set of steps. But what exactly, in your opinion, or maybe you've got the full picture, was it? Was he told to fake? Was he told not to? Or just, I think mainly he was told to not, if you know what I'm saying.
Don't do what Donnie don't does.
The emphasis was not put out there enough, like, hey, don't run on this one because you've got, it's not the look you're looking for.
Right. And Ryan Day has been very vague about this, and, you get the sense he doesn't want to, hang someone out to dry on it. It was just the call itself, that wasn't a call, but, the idea to run left is weird because Jesse Mirko, when he punts, rolls right. So as soon as you start going left, everyone's alarm bells are going off. So, this is not what he normally does. Something not usual is here. You're trying to make a routine play look not routine. And, this is purely a guess, and I haven't even gone back to watch to know if there's any semblance of truth to this. But last year, Jesse Mirko rolled right against Rutgers and just kind of kept rolling because Rutgers had shown a look that was sort of an automatic for them. Did they have, more people on the right side of the field to anticipate that? And therefore, because you saw more people on the right side of the field, you went left? I mean, I don't know. I haven't gone back to – I have not rewatched that portion of the game right now. So that's the only thing that I can sort of think of that might be, hey, if you have a numbers advantage in a certain spot, maybe you automatically go, and it wasn't communicated to him that, like, hey, we just got to, you got to punt it, because that would make sense where you situationally would – be willing to do that maybe, but because of the fact that the Ohio State defense was playing pretty well and you don't want to give Rutgers a short field there, you just punt and play field position, but that wasn't communicated. I mean, this is me connecting a whole bunch of dots that may not even be on the same piece of paper, but that's the closest I can come to an explanation. Either way, at some point there's a pattern of, hey, you keep having these little snafus, and maybe it's not all, it may be a different thing every time, but at some point, there's got to be a commonality there too.
If you go back and watch the video of Ryan Day's interview, and for those who are watching it streaming, like, I think you can see the frustration, hear the frustration, see the frustration. You saw it after the game, and then I think you saw it again in this one, and talking about how coaches are evaluated every day, and he watches Parker Fleming closely, but you hear the frustration, and it's not unlike the frustration going back to talking about Kerry Combs' defense as a coordinator and things like that, where you can't hide the frustration, and hope gives way to frustration. Like with the running game, hope has always been above frustration, and it's like we'll get there. We've got the players. Here, the frustration, not that there's no hope, but the frustration is just the language that he is speaking right now.
Yeah, and I mean, to draw another parallel to Kerry Combs, he was asked about, hey, you made a change with a coordinator a couple of years ago when Kerry Combs was just not happening. Like after the Oregon game in 2021, it was like very clearly, this ain't it. And made a change. Does not sound like that's likely to happen in this case in terms of the special teams. We'll see what it looks like after the season. I think they are probably going to be looking to get James Laurinaitis in the 10 coaches, 10 countable coaches. So that seems like a fairly obvious avenue to pursue. But
I did hear on the radio with Deion Sanders taking play calling away from Sean Lewis and giving it to somebody else who is not one of the 10 staffers. I guess Tim Brewster, their recruiting dynamo and tight ends coach, is now no longer one of the countable 10. So there's an example of you just send somebody.
With the way the Sean Lewis to Pat Shermer transition went for Colorado, I'm not sure I would be following that exact roadmap. But
in terms of just setting one of the 10 assistants aside.
Yeah. We got to talk a little bit about guys coming back from injury. We never get – we do have a super chat.
From Treasure the Torah, what's up, Kevin, Tom, and Tony G? I just want to say, with all the recent events going on with Michigan scandal, it's easy to lose focus. With that being said, we definitely beat Michigan this year. # battle tested.
They are Ohio State certainly more battle tested right now than Michigan is. That will change to some degree this weekend with the Wolverines going to Penn State. We'll see who all gets on that airplane and gets off that airplane and is on the sideline at Penn State. But
Tom, like I wrote in Michigan Monday, people who think that Michigan hasn't been battling in adversity are crazy. The last 2 weeks being without your top sign stealer, that's not easy for anybody. And people aren't thinking about that. So they've been through their adversity. They'll get better because of it, and they'll be ready.
Plus, they had to play without their head coach and offensive coordinator earlier in the season, which is also a thing.
And if it happens again, and it might, they'll have been through it.
We got to see who Ohio State is going to be playing with and without this weekend, because there are a number of guys whose status is sort of up in the air. It sounded probably, I guess I would say, more encouraging on the Denzel Burke side of things than the Lathan Ransom side. Still some questions in terms of Tommy Eichenberg, still some questions in terms of Cade Stover. Where do things stand with all of those guys coming into this weekend's game?
Yeah, I don't even think Cade Stover's brought up, so I assume he'll be ready because he was on call. He could have been brought in an emergency. Denzel Burke said, Ryan Day said they're looking to get him practicing this week, expecting good practice. Lathan Ransom, they'll know more later in the week, so I would expect him to not be playing this week, and they'll see if Denzel Burke has a good week and whether or not they want to give him the one more week. And he could have gone. He was on call, but they'll hold him back. Tommy Eichenberg, Ryan Day, and Jim Knowles both seem to think like if he can play, he will play, but it's up to the training staff because, as Jim Knowles said, Tommy Eichenberg would go and play with no arm. And so right now he's dealing with a wrist, elbow type thing. And we know he played with 2 broken thumbs last year, so he'll play through whatever, but it's up to the staff, the Ohio State staff, to say, no, Tommy, you're not going to do it. And they'll see how he goes this week and how he looks and what he's dealing with, and they'll know more then.
And Josh Proctor was the other person that was a little bit up in the air. That sounded encouraging. I mean, given the fact that he was out for interviews after the game on Saturday, we sort of were assuming it was going to sound encouraging. That sounded like we'll see if he plays this weekend, but that does not that didn't strike me as there's real serious concerns longer term.
No, I would agree. And Day even just pretty much said he's going to play, but then also added, but we'll monitor it. You have to throw that in after a guy takes a bump to the head.
And this is not a Michigan State team that's likely to really stress you down the field in the pass game. We said much the same thing with Rutgers, and Rutgers really didn't stress them much down the field in the pass game either. So, if you were going to sit Ransom and or Proctor and or Burke for a week, even as a precautionary thing, you might think about doing it with, an eye on the longer term being 17 days away.
Right, because right now Ohio State is hitting the stretch of quarterbacks. They're in the middle of the stretch of quarterbacks and offenses that Michigan got to feast on. Now we've talked about how they're not seeing any kind of threats offensively. That's where Ohio State is right now with the Rutgers, Michigan State, Minnesota.
Kyle McCord thought there was some interesting conversation about Kyle McCord. He would have graded out as a champion if not for the one bad throw that was intercepted. That was not a bad decision. It was bad. They talked about it in terms of layering. Basically, got to get it over the first guy. It was the right read, not a good throw. But with Kyle McCord, with the offensive line, with the running game, it feels like Ryan Day is genuinely encouraged by the positive trends that he's seeing.
Yeah, and the red zone was better this past week, and that's going to continue to be a focus. Third downs will continue to be a focus. But was asked, talking about the scoring is down. They're like, 32 points a game when last year they were 44. And he did say, we are trying to establish the run more than we have in the past. And so that takes time, and that pays dividends later on and doesn't pay as many. But if you get it done right, then you can pretty much beat anybody once you've got that running game going. So they're trying to get things done now, but also for later on down the road with that running game. So, and the more you are able to run it, the better your quarterback is going to be able to do the play action and find guys. And so there's some method to it, but I do think we all expected a more explosive offense. He certainly has expected a more explosive offense, but if you're constantly improving and building towards something, you can take a couple of 21 to 10 wins down, in September, October, as long as it's leading to where you need to be in November. And right now, everything offensively is trending up and getting better. But how much can it get to be? Can by the end of the season, can this be where most Ryan Day offenses have been? And does it even need to be when you've got the best defense Ryan Day has had since 2019?
And I think the answer to the first question is no. But I think the answer to the second question is it doesn't necessarily need to be, because, they're down, 12 points a game or 10 points a game or whatever it is right now. But the defense is probably at least a touchdown to 10 points better than it has been in previous seasons as well. So you're ending up, it doesn't look the way it has, but the results have been broadly the same. Winning a game 35 to 16 is just the same as winning a game 45 to 26. It's the same margin. It's the same everything. It looks a little different, but the end result is the same. And they do continue to, be trending in a positive direction. I don't get the sense there's any real concern about the defense other than just the health of the defense. And, even the health of the defense, you asked Ryan Day about, the upside of, hey, you obviously you want your guys healthy, but if you don't have your guys healthy, well, some of those younger guys are getting a lot of opportunities, and that can pay dividends not only on the field down the road, but also in recruiting.
Yeah. We made a big deal about how last year they started 5 different corners, 5 different safeties. This year they have started 5 different safeties, 4 different corners. So they're like on that same track, but the results have been much different. And I asked Ryan Day about that, and he said, well, the recruiting has helped. So the talent is better. Getting Davis and Igbenogson out of the portal has helped. Jermaine Matthews being a guy that can start and do what he did has helped. Everybody being a year older, Denzel Burke being a second year or third year here, third year as a starter, but the recruiting aspect, lifting everybody up. And I think they're just better than they were last year, not even just the knowledge, but the talent overall is better than it was a year ago, and that was key. And then I also asked him, 3 years in a row you've had a cornerback start as a freshman. Do you, how do you use that in recruiting? He said it's big because recruits see that, and they make sure that the recruits see it. And we can point to Denzel Burke, Jair Brown last year, Jermaine Matthews, but Travion Henderson started nearly the entire season in 2021 as a true freshman. So they could point to different guys and different opportunities. Sonny Styles last year in the playoff game, where if you are ready, and recruits all believe they'll be ready.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, this could be you. And they're not necessarily lying. They're not lying because it's up to the player. And we're seeing that with Jermaine Matthews is going to be special. He's already pretty darn good and extremely confident, and that's just one guy. Malik Hartford getting that start against Youngstown State and then getting yanked, but then not letting that get to him, and then stepping up in a big moment this past weekend. And Kai Stokes, Jim Knowles has said that he's had his best few weeks of practice. Light bulb has clicked on for him as a true sophomore now. Last year had a big spring. Everybody was big on him, and then kind of just got quiet. And basically Knowles said that he's just got a lot of guys in front of him. And I think for Stokes, he's probably also seen there is an opportunity. And if I am ready, nobody stays healthy all year long. And that you could have learned that last year. You're learning that now, and he stepped up as well.
Well, and you go through all the different position groups, and quarterback, Kyle McCord started in 2021 as a true freshman, started the Akron game. Dallin Hayden last year at running back started the Maryland game. You mentioned Travion Henderson, obviously basically played the whole season in 2021 as essentially a starter. Carnell Tate this year at wide receiver. I don't think he started, but he's been playing and earning a bigger role, and the trajectory there is very clear. Tight end is a spot where I don't think I can think of someone. Jelani Thurman was asked about today, and he's still a little bit of a work in progress. But offensive line, you've seen they use that Buffalo package. You saw Donovan Jackson start there a couple of years ago as a true freshman. You've seen, or at least play extensively there as a true freshman. Luke Montgomery has been doing that this year. I mean, all around the offense and on the defensive side of the ball as well. You're seeing guys start or play increasing roles as true freshmen, and even on the defensive side of the ball. Defensive line, you're seeing some of those younger guys. Caden McDonald, you've seen taking some snaps in the interior of the defensive line. A lot of the second-year guys, Caden Curry, Kenyatta Jackson, Hero Canoe, those guys are all playing bigger roles. So it is, if you are ready, you are going to play. Speaking of being ready, Tony, it is time to talk about celebrity boxing hypotheticals. I did not receive the same PR email that one of the TV folks in town received, but apparently there is a line out for a hypothetical boxing matchup between Jim Harbaugh and Ryan Day. Ryan Day was up plus 150,000 to answer a question about it. Right. He did not. Unsurprisingly, just was not even remotely interested in participating in any kind of conversation about that. Understandably. So, Tony, Ryan Day, Jim Harbaugh, who you got?
Well, I think you got to take the younger guy. You got to take Ryan Day. He's the angrier person right now, and so I think that helps.
That might be a steep competition this week.
But in fact, when it is celebrity boxing, technique goes away. So I think anger does help you in celebrity boxing because you can just wail. You can just go. There's no ducking, diving, dodging, dipping, or diving, dodging in there. It's just you're just swinging. So I think Ryan Day would. I did not get the email. I assumed Day would be the favorite in that. I'm saddened that was not put forth as part of the question as well. And just so you know, you're minus 150.
And
I have the odds.
Oh, Kevin has the odds.
Folder. Ryan Day minus 220, Jim Harbaugh plus 155.
Okay, Ryan Day minus 220, Harbaugh plus 155. I mean, there's not a lot of value there on either of them, but I think the Day being 15-ish years younger, that has to play into it. I can't remember if one of them is like noticeably taller than the other. I don't think so. Harbaugh might be an inch or two taller, but you probably don't have a substantial reach advantage there. I think you gotta go with he's also full of milk. He's all full of milk. You gotta wonder how long he can.
Milk and steak, that makes you logy.
It's you gotta punch steaks. You can't eat steaks. So yeah, I think you gotta, the biggest gap there feels like it's the age. So I think I'm with you. You gotta side with the age. Tony, with the way things are going, could you definitively tell me that we're not going to end up with some sort of boxing something?
Well, it depends on what the JGAC has to say. Maybe that's how they'll solve it.
All right. So do we have a super chat?
We do. It's directed more toward me. Stephen Piper, is there a GoFundMe page or something for more Big Me kickoff episodes? I've got the fever, and the only prescription is more Kevin Noon. Thank you, Stephen Piper.
That sounds like a very serious medical condition.
Thank you, Stephen Piper, for the super chat.
I'm working on it. I would welcome a GoFundMe page, but we'll bring them. I promise. They're coming.
All right. There will be more Big Noon kickoff, Big Me kickoff for everybody out there. And the best way to get those is just to continue to pester and ask Kevin to do it. And then he'll be like guilt-ridden into it.
And the best place to ask him is on the huddle board, presented by Jeff Ruby. Speaking of steaks, delicious, delicious steaks, presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That is where we talk to all of our members, and they tend to start threads about all of us at various times. Kevin just had a birthday thread yesterday.
Indeed, he did.
Happy birthday to our special boy.
Facts only. I just want to clarify: milk makes you logy. Steak does not. I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah. Do we have questions or okay? Well, then let's take some questions.
Odysseus, 2002. Michigan fans are now claiming Urban is scouting for Ohio State in his gig at Fox.
Okay. So on a scale of, and I'm going to be very careful with my words, the dumbest things I've ever heard, that's only like a 3.5, but it has been a pretty steep competition the last few weeks, not just on the Michigan side of things either. So if you're not affiliated with the school and you have another job, and that job is to go to the place, like that's okay. You can do that. Is he on the sidelines wearing, is he videotaping everything? Is he being paid by Ohio State to be there? Is he, because this is one of these things where it's like you can see stuff just sort of getting thrown out there right now, and it's just kind of like, all right, I've been liberally using the mute button so I don't have to like create like a quick key to write the word moron on Twitter.
I don't know, maybe it was the Oregon 2021 game when Fox was at the game, and Urban Meyer was down there watching on the sideline with other, like, that's where you'll find the TV people. A lot of times, if they want to go watch it on the sideline, they will, the studio people. And I did not see any headsets or anything like that. I will say, though, I don't want to give into conspiracy theory, but which major football program has more people nationally scattered around the college football media sphere than Ohio State? So what I'm saying, I'm not calling it a vast network of spies, but
Kirk Herbstreit and Desmond Howard frequently traveling together. Should both programs just get the death penalty?
Celebrity boxing. No, don't say death penalty. Don't say death around Desmond Howard. You will get fired.
NCAA death penalty. Sorry, to be clear. Yeah, no, I think that is probably not the most likely explanation for what Urban Meyer is doing on the sidelines. I will tell you, I was at the Penn State game. I was down on the sidelines and shooting, and Urban Meyer at one point was standing next to me talking to his son Nate, was eating a Subway sandwich. Did not hear him talking at all about the signs going on. And then at one point there was a kickoff that was coming pretty much directly towards me, and he reached his hand out and saved it. So, I think he may be doing things other than stealing signs. He may be saving lives and eating sandwiches.
Are you saying the football hit him while he was making a sign? He was demonstrating a signal, and then the ball hit his hand. Is that?
I mean, I wasn't not saying that.
I just want to know how far this goes up.
Next one, Thomas Orzak. Can Ohio State beat Georgia and Bama and Oregon and Texas and FSU? Probably not all at once.
If you put together an all-star team, I would have that team a substantial favorite over Ohio State. I mean, I don't know that there's any team on that list that I would definitively say Ohio State can't beat that team.
No, I would agree. And it's funny, the 2019 season with LSU, Ohio State, and Clemson, like any of those three teams, you put them this year, is like, wow, good luck beating that team. Like there are no teams like that this year. I don't know that there were last year. So I don't think there's anybody that has played so well. You're like, ooh, good luck with them. Now, there might be a team that plays so well these last 4 weeks. You're like, I don't want to have anything to do with them. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the way it goes every year. But from what I've seen so far, like nobody is untouchable. There's a bunch of unbeatens, but nobody's untouchable.
Well, and you go back to the years Ohio State has won the national championship in the past. And, people are looking at, oh, boy, they were trailing Rutgers at halftime. This team has no chance at a national championship. Go back to this portion of the 2002 season, and they were losing 6-3 against Purdue on the road until 2 minutes left in the game. They went to double overtime against Illinois. 2014, their penultimate home game was they were losing to Indiana in the third quarter. They, in their final game, were very, very close with Michigan into the fourth quarter. And and then sometimes stuff changes. It is, you just got to get in. If you get into the playoff, anything can happen. You got to, at that point, you just got to win 2 games.
Ask TCU.
Yes, that went really well for them for a while.
Yep.
Super chat, David Greenshield. Any truth to the fact that Scallion relocated to Arizona, probably in a Henry Hill-like witness protection program?
Do you think he's complaining about the pasta sauce out there?
I don't know if has he relocated out to Arizona, or perhaps like to Maine, or
New Hampshire.
I had to adjust.
Yeah, okay.
I didn't want to bring in that state, and just what. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the super chats. Mm-hmm. Yes, there's an opportunity. There's a chance that he has definitely relocated wherever. And that's a story that people are going to continue to try to get. Like, come on, Connor, just give us your side. And I think one way to maybe make that happen is for more of these little bits and pieces to come out to where it's like, I just need to clear all of the air. But I still think he's going to be a guy that doesn't throw Michigan under the bus until they completely, like, I don't know, if they blame him for everything and just pin all of this on him, can a guy just accept that?
Or a vacuum sucks all the air out of the room, one that he was working on.
Okay, so we need to address the vacuum situation. And if you want to hear Tony and I talk about, we had a bunch of people in our mentions this morning, like, oh, are you hiding it from the story about Jim Harbaugh not being directly connected to? No, sometimes we're busy. Sometimes life happens. We have an hour-long show about Michigan, specifically about Michigan, coming out on the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed. That'll be out shortly after we're done with this. Extremely exciting breaking news from the Wall Street Journal. I'm just going to read this verbatim. You know how people love it when I read verbatim. So property records indicate that Stallions purchased a $485,000 house near the Michigan campus in Ann Arbor in March 2022, shortly before his stint with the Marines ended. Here we go. Ready? Brace yourselves. Not long after he moved in that spring, dozens of old vacuum cleaners appeared on his front porch. The unsightly stash peeved neighbors and sparked the interest of the Homeowners Association, which sued Stallions for allegedly operating an appliance refurbishing business out of his home in violation of its bylaws. Stallions fought back and represented himself in Washtenaw County Trial Court. In a letter written in response to a summons in October 2022, he wrote, quote, I suspect that whoever has chosen to sue me either 1, doesn't like the fact that I am a veteran, or 2, is a Michigan State fan and knows I am a Michigan football coach and wants to draw my attention away, close quote. He had one Spartans fan in mind, quote, someone named Jeff, close quote, who lived down the street and had a son attending Michigan State. Quote, almost done here. He uncomfortably questioned me about Michigan football and what goes on in our building, giving me a bad feeling about him. He definitely seemed like someone who wants to distract me with unnecessary, time-consuming things like this, close quote. Stallions wrote, Tony, you have, I think, a well-deserved reputation for a level of creativity that you'll come up with these crazy analogies or whatever. I want you to come up with something right now on the spot that like 3 weeks from now is like, no, that's too crazy to possibly be true about this story.
Well,
Just to be clear, about Connor Stallions and the Michigan story on the whole, not specifically his adventures in vacuum maintenance.
no, I think the HOA is the way to go with this. And as we find out more and more about perhaps Connor Stallions, maybe the HOA finds out more and more like, hey, why is there a giraffe in the backyard? And then it's like, you can't have giraffe grooming in the backyard or giraffe husbandry, or like, this is not even, are you even licensed for a giraffe? And so then it'll be like, well, you think the giraffe is the least of it. You should see what's in the basement. Now, I got the hippo when it was a baby, and now I can't get it out of the basement.
We have seen related stories in college football in the past. Tony, I have 2 words for you. The second one is assassin. The first one is pole. Are you raising your hand because you're stretching or because we have a super chat?
We have 2 super chats.
All right.
They're not going to make you feel any better.
All right.
Omar Austin, gun to head. Since Kevin is the jam that holds his biscuit together, do you guys prefer him being grape, strawberry, or apple butter? Hashtag biscuit 1 and biscuit 2.
Don't ever say apple butter in reference to Kevin Noon. I'm sorry, I was throwing up in my ears.
How are you making biscuits that jam is what's holding them together? Don't biscuits.
Well, you pull it apart and then you put it back together.
So if you took us apart, if you created an issue and then,
well, that's very fitting.
Yeah.
Because we were just fine, and then Kevin created an issue by getting. I'm a red jam more than a grape jam.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can be strawberry or cherry or whatever, all kinds.
Mm-hmm.
But also if the only thing there is grape jelly, or I'm not an apple butter person. I don't understand what it is. We used to have back in my home area, there's an apple butter festival, and I did not care for that. Like I don't know what you're doing over there.
Wasn't enough beer there.
No, there's plenty of beer, but I just don't. Apple butter, I'm not for it.
And then again from Omar Austin, Tom Orr, the Sir Richard Attenborough of Ohio State football.
The Sir Richard Attenborough. I'm not doing an accent. I'm just not, and we're just going to leave it there. But yes, it is. There is. It is turning into more of a Wild Kingdom type of show. I feel like over the span of what has been a mighty peculiar college football season. Do we end up on the African savannah at some point before the season is over? I mean, at this point, I can't say no.
Chasing down some leads and some witnesses. By the way, the Mutual Omaha Animal Kingdom, the greatest clip ever from that show is Marlon Perkins walking through a river with a giant anaconda around him, carrying it to wherever, and he steps into a hole and he goes underwater and he's down there for like, I don't know, 20 seconds. You're like, I just watched Marlon Perkins die on PBS.
R.I.P. to a real one.
Yeah, but he popped back up because no anaconda is going to stop him.
All right, we're here at 35 minutes. Let me get in here. Mark Fetters, I know they don't report injuries. What's your opinion on McCord's ankle?
McCord's ankle seems like it's just gonna, unless it gets worse, it's going to get better, and that's, well, he's going to be receiving treatment all week, unless that gets exacerbated in some way. It should be better every week. Will it be 100% by the time Michigan rolls around? we don't know specifically the nature of it, but I mean, if you've ever had an ankle sprain of any kind, it's one of those things that does not heal overnight. So I don't know that he's 100% for the Michigan game, but unless it gets exacerbated in some way, it probably is substantially better by the time that game rolls around.
Yeah, but it can be tweaked at any point.
Sure.
That's the other thing. Kind of like JT Barrett's knee in 2017. He dealt with that all season long. He didn't really know about it, but when it finally went out for good against Michigan, yeah, you really had to deal with it then.
We've got Wingman Ted. Thoughts on Joel Platt having the mindset of letting this run its course and having such a big platform? He says he's about the integrity of the sport, but if Michigan vacates wins, asterisks suck.
You have to let it play out in some sense.
Well, yeah, and what does play out mean? I mean, he seems like he's more of the let the NCAA solve it, and that's not a unreal, that's not a completely unreasonable position. I think you're dealing with the Big Ten. The Big Ten has a way to let it play out to a certain degree and to the point where you're following your own due process, because that was a phrase that Santa Ono used in his letter, the Michigan president, to Tony Petitti last week before they had a meeting. You got to let the due process play out. The Big Ten's due process is playing out right now. The Big Ten's due process is, okay, Monday, the Big Ten notified Michigan of the allegations. Michigan's going to have about 48 hours to respond, so that gets you to Wednesday, midday-ish. Then either Tony Petitti can say, I bless you with a 2-game suspension, or he can go to the JGAC and they can evaluate the entire case, the case against Michigan, the statements in Michigan's rebuttal documents, all that kind of stuff, and they can figure out, do you want to do more than that? That is the due process, which is laid out in the Big Ten sportsmanship guidelines. So you can't say that they're not following due process, because that is the prescribed process for the Big Ten to do it. So you might not like the results, but that doesn't mean you didn't get your due process that you as an institution agreed to in advance.
Yeah, that's why my complaint with my beef with Joel Klatt is just like it is playing out. Like the Big Ten is looking at it. They've got information from the NCAA. They have talked. They know what the NCAA has to this point. So now the Big Ten has that as well. They have what they may have in sharing back with the NCAA. So the process is ongoing and it is playing out. So I don't know why what he thinks isn't, other than the fact that you're not just letting the NCAA handle this.
Super chat from Omar Austin. Gun to head. If you had to witness Jim Harbaugh being eaten alive on safari, narrated by Attenborough, of course, would you rather see him eaten by A, a hyena, B, a hippopotamus, or C, a toothless lion? Thanks for upping the budget, Tracy.
So hippopotami, if I were going to be specific, they are vegetarians. They do kill more humans than any other animal, I think, in Africa, possibly the world. But they are vegetarians, so he would not be eaten alive by a hippopotamus. A hyena, I mean, I think you're bringing Desmond Howard back into things. And then a toothless lion, I mean, that's just going to take forever. I don't know. I
don't want to watch that for long. My thing is,
I would go so far as to say I don't want to watch that ever, but within the premise of the question,
I mean, we got to answer the question.
We do have to answer the question.
It's a super chat. I do enjoy what I follow, like the Cincinnati Zoo and the Columbus Zoo on Twitter, and some of the things they'll do is they'll show, hey, we just fed our hippo a pumpkin, and it's delightful to watch a pumpkin just smash and nosh on a pumpkin. So I'm gonna have to go with hippo. I know you say they're vegetarian, but I would say once you get that taste of human flesh, Tom, once you go.
R.I.P. Harambe. All right, so I know we have got to get out of here. We've got to get out of here. So a couple quick things we just want to touch on. If you want to hear our thoughts on the Jim Harbaugh didn't know, hey, Ryan Day's family, there's no evidence whatsoever linking Ryan Day's family to literally anything. The case against Michigan, the SI.com reporting on the hey, everyone else does it, just not in a way that's illegal, all of that stuff. You can find that on the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed on Wednesday afternoon. You can also, that'll be on our YouTube channel a little later on Wednesday afternoon as well. We'll get there, Kevin. We have a super chat. Tuesday night? Sorry, I think I said Wednesday. Everything is happening Tuesday. Tuesday night, Kevin and Tony and I will have our usual college football playoff rankings reveal live reaction show. That'll start at 6:55 p.m. That'll be on youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle as well. Kevin, we got a super chat.
We do, and we need to be done in about 3 minutes, but this is a big one. The B&B Graphics super chat. What do you make of the AP article released yesterday?
Okay.
There was also more. That was, I think, also with the SI one by Richard Johnson today.
Yeah, and we talked about that for about a half an hour on the show upcoming that you'll be able to find. But briefly, Tom, I think this feels like it's coming from the Michigan side of things to, hey, look, where else would it come from?
Right.
Obviously, I mean, this is information that was given to Michigan, and I've seen other people saying that information was attempted to be given to other national reporters and they didn't do anything with it. And so, but this is just a thing where you're trying to show that other people have stolen signs, and throughout this whole thing, it's not been about stealing signs. It's been about how the signs were acquired. And also in that SI article is the quote that, go ahead.
Schools, I was going to let you do it, but reading out loud has really turned to my beat. Schools sharing signal information is not uncommon in college football. Multiple sources in the coaching profession told SI, nor is it against NCAA rules. Quote, every week you call your friends and other staffs and say, hey, what you got on our next opponent? Our current coach with the Big Ten experience said, everyone does it. Who cares? So, I mean, this is one of these things where it's being presented as, look, this is degrees of gray, except if one thing is on the side of this is not legal and one thing is on the side of this is legal, then those are pretty different shades of gray to me. And, you can have the argument, and Lord knows people online are trying, that, well, this is, really there's not much of a difference. It just happens to be that one of these things is illegal and one of these things is legal. And it's like, yes,
that's the difference.
That's why we're here, is essentially the short version of that. But I mean, this is we keep hearing about big bombshells are going to come, and the bombshells have not scattered much dirt the first couple that have been going on.
No, if this is the start of it, I don't know if this is just starting low and building, but both of those articles also had like the answers embedded in them that this actually isn't a big deal.
Yeah. So we will, if you want to hear much more about that, you can find that in the Buckeye Weekly podcast feed a little later on Tuesday afternoon. And of course at youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, please hit that thumbs up for us. We appreciate that. And also make sure you find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. That is where we do more of our content, more writing, and talk to folks on our message board, answer a lot of questions there. The thread on the Michigan situation just keeps going. Boy, it is going crazy once again today. So you can find us there at BuckeyeHuddle.com and youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We'll talk to you tomorrow.